And welcome to the first interview for chain abstracted applications. I'm David from Particle Network, and I'm here with Brendan from Yamata. Particle Network is leading the way of chain abstraction. We are releasing universal accounts, and we'll be able to power chain agnostic applications. Users will be able to essentially get into applications and use liquidity from any chain without bridging and without seed phrases and all these cumbersome things that Web3 is used to. We recently ran a chain abstracted hackathon with the Encode Club, and a lot of good chain abstracted projects came out. Yamata is one of them. Actually, was the winner of essentially all the prize. So it's really good to have Brendan here to talk about Yamata and their approach to chain abstraction and their end goal. So, Brendan, if you want to kick off with introducing yourself and Yamata.
Sure, yeah, I'll keep it mega brief about myself because I know you're more interested in Yamata. But look, Brent is my name. I suppose you figured that much out already, or Ryuko, if you want to find me on X. In a previous life, I was a technical project manager at fintechs for almost 15 years. I just crypto fairly early on, having bought my first Bitcoin way back in May of 2012, I think. So I'm something of a crypto native. I've since then been somewhat fascinated, somewhat obsessed with kind of all things decentralized tech, and I've been trading assets in the space for over a decade. So I've been through the wars in regard to counterparty risk in centralized exchanges, as you can imagine, and bringing you up to speed. I'm also a co-founder of Yamata, which brings us naturally to the next question. What is Yamata? So Yamata is a hybrid exchange. Yeah, Yamata is a hybrid exchange. And what we mean by that is taking an off-chain sequencer and giving it a proof of history model, which is a little bit like Solana's proof of history mechanism that they use on their blockchain, except for the off-chain sequencer on Yamata has one mission in the whole universe, and that is to keep the matching engine of the exchange fully transparent and fully honest. We've then fused that with a decentralized wallet infrastructure. But I still rather get into the nuts and bolts of things. The kind of grand vision or mission of Yamata is to provide the user with an exchange which has the Web 2 level centralized exchange feeling, user experience and performance and trading suite, while also arming them with security and transparency and confidence that comes from self-custody and a decentralized infrastructure. Essentially, we want to be an exchange that gives the user the best of both worlds, the performance of centralized exchange with the ideals of a decentralized exchange.
Yeah, a centralized exchange. That sounds like the holy grail of the environment. I myself, I'm still using centralized exchanges as bridges. Now we release Universal X from Particle Network, and that actually starts covering that a little bit. But I used to use centralized exchanges quite a lot, just as bridges. Just moving things around.
It's easier. It's easier. That's why. It's as simple as that. It's just the easier option.
Yeah, and it's very much against the Web3 beliefs, so it doesn't make that much sense. But anyway.
It is. Yeah, it's absurd. I won't tell anybody. Sorry.
Yeah, mentioned in the intro, you were actually the winner of the Chain Abstraction Hackathon with Encode Club and Particle Network. So tell me a little bit about that. Why did you decide to join the hackathon? And was chain abstraction something that really pushed you into getting into the hackathon, or was that more a collateral, or was that a principal idea? Tell me about that.
Look, I suppose in the early days of Yamata, we'd be looking around for hackathons and stuff that were aligned with our vision of where we wanted to go anyway, for exposure and leading networking and all that stuff as well. As I mentioned in the intro, Yamata seeks to be, our user experience is a kind of a cornerstone of what we're building here. We need to be Web 2 feeling. So really for me, like what makes this possible? So there's a couple of things, right? The first one is probably the rise of high performance blockchains, but really then comes down to what I call the three big abstractions. So account abstraction, gas abstraction, and then the final frontier, chain abstraction. So when we came across this hackathon with Particle, a major player in chain abstraction, it's exactly what we want. It's exactly what we're doing anyway. So mission perfectly aligned, and yeah, we're all in, and that's how we ended up.
Perfect. That's cool. And we're always looking forward to talk and meet applications and projects that are aligning with those visions. So it was a pretty good fit, I think. Talking about Yamata, I think you mentioned that a little bit, but what was the main inspiration for building Yamata besides the giving a trading app that has a better user experience? If there was a different inspiration, there was anything more than that?
Yeah, definitely there was. And as I said, I'm a trader myself. I've been in the space quite a long time, so I'm very much battle hardened and been through the wars of counterparty risk over the lifetime of this asset class. I'm a no-cost competitor myself personally. I lived through Bitcoin 24 collapse, or Riga collapse, and FTX being the latest. It just shouldn't be this way. Like the world should not be this way. When you're building a space built around transparency and putting assets and apps on public ledgers, and then you go and do the complete opposite when you're trading those assets, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And that counterparty risk is just constantly there, ever present with those players. That's really the problem that Yamata seeks to solve.
Yeah, and it looks like you've been in the space for quite a long time. Are you one of these guys that bought the pizza for a few $1,000,000 right now? Or
Yeah. Look, I don't like to look. I don't like to look at my old exchange account to see what I wasted. Yeah, I can't claim to have folded it all, or my life be significantly different. But look, we're still early.
oh yeah, and I often think myself, I haven't been in the space for as long as you, but I was participating already when there was some of the big plays like Ethereum at $7 and stuff like that. I don't think anything would have changed. I would have probably sold everything for $10. So it's
Yeah,
I like
no,
to
like,
think it this way.
yeah, oh, totally. I mean, it used to be all on Bitcoin blog, but there'd be trends saying one day Bitcoins will be worth $1,000. Even me, I'd scoff at it. You would have to be incredibly hardcore believer to have gotten
Oh
the
yeah.
way. But we live and learn.
It is what it is, and we're still good here. So going back to Yamata, you are building a trading application and you're a trader yourself. What do you think are the main issues and oversight with trading today?
With on-chain trading, and usually I would say UX, but I've already talked about my kind of three big abstractions. So I'll go with another one and say fragmentation. We live in this kind of multi-chain reality now, which is great. Every chain has its own purpose and for all sorts of reasons. But what it leads to is not just a fragmented user experience, you're also have fragmented liquidity, fragmented value, even using your wallet, it's all over the place. Like, and that's just today. But what we're also seeing, like currently to this, what's happening is in another part of the space, there's a rise of roll-up chains, where the likes of Dimension and Calvera and Avalanche is doing a thing with next year as well. So now you have a situation where a non-engineer can jump onto Dimension or something and launch your own chain in 10 minutes. If it seems inconvenient now, with your like core 2 to 8 chains, imagine what it'll be like next year when every meme coin has its own chain and its own ecosystem, and you're toggling between 100 chains. And don't get me wrong, what those guys do are absolutely awesome when we're talking about Dimension as well for own later. It's absolutely great for performance, control of your own ecosystem and stuff. But there's definitely a risk that the fragmentation of the UX experience might actually get worse. So that I think is an unspoken about problem. I think abstraction is here to solve.
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely of the idea that at some point in the next recent future, every main application is going to have their own chain somehow. It's just going to be how it's going to go, because they're going to be able to tailor specific chains for their own purposes, and the fragmentation is just going to get worse. Definitely. That's what we're working on. So you are very involved in on-chain trading between your personal life, let's say, and Yamata. Do you think as an industry, we are going the right direction to bring people into on-chain trading, or are the barriers still too high?
We have come a long way, considering we started at pretty much zero. So pretty good. I can remember using Ether Delta and stuff in 2017 and 2018, and that was groundbreaking, but it was like horrendous to use. So the rise of swap market, it's great, and it's definitely a huge leap forward. But I think there's still a long way to go. There's still 8% of trading happens off chain, which is not right. Like the barrier is definitely too high. Like essentially what's happening with AMMs is crypto enthusiasts are the ones that are using them. But it's hard to see how it can grow outside of that ecosystem the way it is at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Even I've been in the space working full time in the Web3 environment for 3 years now, almost 4 years. And I'm still very wary of doing certain operations very often. Like I still when I'm clicking the button on MetaMask, I'm always like thinking 10 times about what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Is the URL of the website correct? What is this
Yeah.
person doing? Is the URL the correct one? Is it not a phishing site? It's this authorizing stuff that I don't want. What is all this hexadecimal stuff telling me? I don't get that. And there are some UX improvements, but we definitely need
It's a
to have
minefield.
a better way for that. It really is. That's crazy. Talking about Yamata and the trading experience, how would you compare it with really big trading apps right now, like SushiSwap and Uniswap? What is your goal in, or what are your path on competing with these guys?
Yeah. So pre-launch, I'm not going to come on here and start attacking the giants like Uniswap and stuff, but look, I think I wouldn't really place Yamata even in a place where we really want to compete directly with the Dexes and Uniswap and all that. They could have a place in the world as well, as I mentioned, for simple swap AMMs. But I think the thing with those AMMs and all the Dexes out there at the moment is the people trading them are obviously crypto natives, right? So they're enthusiasts for crypto as is anyway. So I call that a kind of slice of the pie. And if you're managing there competing for that slice of the pie, you're limited and we're all fighting each other for that slice of the pie. If the UX is good enough on Yamata and performance is good enough and trading options in Sweden is good enough, we should be able to attract traders that are not traditionally on trade figures into the fold on chain. So in that way, we are looking to actually grow the whole pie, not just fight for the small bit that's already trading on chain. So in that way, where I want to see Yamata is actually competing with the centralized exchanges. So we want to see Yamata competing eventually with the big boys, Binance and Coinbase. We may not get there overnight, but that's the mission. That's where we want to be. And that's the UX that we want to replicate. Yeah, like obviously taking volume and business from crypto on-chain traders is definitely within scope. But I wouldn't see us as a direct comparison to the Dexes. I really would hope that we can get in there, bring more people on chain, because we're going to make it so intuitive and simplistic and what they're familiar with, that will grow the whole pie. And this will be a better thing for the whole space overall.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense actually. And really giving that experience where the user doesn't even realize that the application is on chain. I feel like that's really the end goal, at least for what we're working on between Particle. And also my personal belief is the goal is going to be achieved when the user gets into the application and uses it, enjoys it, and is useful for them without even realizing it's on chain.
Absolutely. They shouldn't care about the infrastructure at all. It should exactly be the app layer. That's what the users should care about. That's the way it is with Web 2. That's the way it should be with Web 3 as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's also why I believe that in the near future, most big applications will have their own chain because they can tailor it to their own users. The user doesn't care what chain it is. They don't need to interact with that specifically. And that's where chain abstraction is going to be able to enable this. Pulling liquidity from anywhere. That will be the key for sure. Let's go a little bit more into technicalities. So for the, of course, the hackathon is mostly a proof of concept. Everyone understands that. But what is your experience? Well, first of all, what tools and SDKs did you use, and what is your experience? So generally, you use the Particle Connect for onboarding and Cluster, the Cluster SDK. What was your experience between with those?
Yeah, so we use Particle AA SDK, Particle Law to connect. And we use Cluster for kind of cross-chain deposit. I think remarkably, I can actually say that everything we use with Particle, I'm not just saying this because I'm on the call, but all the Particle stuff that we use pretty much worked exactly as we needed it to out of the box. So it felt very production ready, even though it was a proof of concept. We didn't really run into any issues. We used Cluster for cross-chain deposits because obviously Yamata, again, very UX focused. We don't want people bridging inside the app.
Yeah.
I will probably go to market. Sorry, we're definitely going to market with Monad as our kind of first primary chain. So what we really want is the ability for people to deposit from any blockchain or network and be credited on Monad. But we do not want to bridge because the bridging experience is terrible. So we used Cluster's SDK for that. And we had a couple of lingering issues there. Support was good and we got it ironed out pretty smoothly. Yeah, I would say all in all, it was pretty straightforward and easy to use both.
Nice, that's good to hear. What do you think between those tools they use, between the particles, packages and clusters? What do you have any recommendation from the DevX standpoint? Things that we could do better? I don't know, documentation or maybe features that would be useful for you as a developer.
No, look, it all went very smoothly. I definitely don't have any complaints. If I was going to ask another feature, Yamata, like selfishly, Yamata used multi-sig under the hood
Yeah,
based on safe core. So having multi-sig natively in Particle would be helpful, but it didn't really cause an issue for us. So that's not a major deal, but that's where it would go down as a next step. Also, non-EVMs would be awesome for universal accounts. Solana and Sway and stuff would obviously be ideal in the
yeah.
pipeline.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, no, non-EVM chains are definitely in the works for Universal Accounts SDK and everything. Actually, the implementation of Universal X that we have now, it already includes Solana and some of the other chains. Yeah, it's
It does actually.
yeah, it is actually, it's the principle of chain abstraction, right? If it makes sense to be able to bridge the liquidity between different ecosystems and different virtual machines if we want to take in this on that side, because that will be, that's the difficult part, right?
Yeah, mega important. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's actually one of the main reasons I used to use centralized exchanges for because I don't really have a good way to move stuff between Solana and EVM chain, for example, or Starknet and EVM
Exactly.
chain. I still don't have a good way to move Starknet around.
Yeah, exactly. Look, the generation one bridges, the UX is terrible. Like the last generation of like needing gas on both chains and all that sort of stuff, like it's just never going to work for anybody that's not dedicated to making it work. So much easier just to centralize. Essentially,
Yeah, it's crazy. We are getting there. We're getting there. Talking about these tools that you use during the hackathon and what you're planning to use for your production application. Did you see, are we at a level where there is an actual immediate impact to the user experience, or is still a ways to go for that?
oh no, we're
like-
definitely 100%. We're there as regards impact for user experience. Account abstraction is the cornerstone of everything that we're building with Yamata. And to put it into perspective, just the onboarding alone. So it's not just, never mind matching a centralized exchange's performance and beating them on security. We can actually beat them on onboarding as well with account abstraction.
Yeah.
But depending on your tier and what volume you're doing, like onboarding to a centralized exchange could take days. You know what I mean? Going through all the steps.
Sure.
Whereas with Yamata using account abstraction, Particle Connect, you're talking 5 seconds. Click,
Yeah.
done. So the impact is there. It's not coming soon. It's already there. It just needs to be mass adopted at the app layer.
Yeah, and without even considering the privacy implication, because I don't want to go too deep in on this side. But for example, I am getting more time that goes by, the more I get concerned with what the governments and institutions can know about me and the movements that I make and things like that. So it is definitely also covering people that are worried about that.
Yeah. Look, so the regulations, some regs are necessary, but like KYC is wildly unpopular in crypto, and with good reason. With good reason. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I've heard quite a few horror stories from back. Actually, not even too much of a horror story, just something that happened to me yesterday. I have a US bank account and I tried to send instant transfer of money to a friend because he bought something for me. I had to give money back. And it was the first time making a transfer to this person from this bank account. The bank immediately blocked the account immediately. Well, it's unusual. You had to talk to me and tell me what you're doing and why you're doing it. I'm like, what the heck is this?
It's your money. Yeah. It's absolutely wild.
I already paid the bank to keep the money there. I already paid the government in taxes when I put the money there, and I'm still having to justify myself whenever. And it wasn't a big amount; it was like $100 or something like that. If $100 is this controlled, imagine people that need to make bigger movements, right? And I feel like privacy shouldn't be something unusual. It's right.
Yeah, but what it is, it's not mass surveillance.
Yes.
Yeah. Just the way it's done with the legacy banking system.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll be able to also solve some of those issues right there, right? So talking about UX, what is the ideal user experience that you're trying to build compared to what you can build now? For example, the universal account SDK that is going to give you access to the particle infrastructure and the full-blown chain abstraction infrastructure right out of the box in 20 lines of code is just about a month away, hopefully. Before that, what is the ideal user experience that you're trying to build?
Like, I mean, the ideal user experience is it's just going to be a mega intuitive experience. It cuts down on the clicks, it cuts down on all the laborious, like heartbreaking stuff that all of us use these decentralized applications put up with every day. If you're using any, like Uniswap should be mega simple. For example, like it's asset swap, and that's it. But it's not. And even if they kind of, because they have MetaMask, which is an external factor, and then you're probably using a ledger as well with MetaMask, and then you're into all sorts of hell. So you've gone from one click to, even if they batch the approval and the swap, you still have at least 10 clicks and all sorts of failures and problematic routes for that to go. Ideally, abstract every single piece of that, get rid of that. It needs to feel like, I don't know, you probably don't have Revolut there, but like the kind of neobanks in Europe do a really good job.
I'm familiar.
Yeah, and really, your friend with her phone and use like N26 or Revolut. Mega, it needs to be that easy. You absolutely don't think about how it feels. Nothing to do with it. You don't care. And look, we're almost there, man. Like you said, we have a bit abstraction already, gas abstraction already, chain abstraction is very much, I think, the last hurdle. And it feels like 2025 is going to be a massive change and a massive year for sort of UX changes in the space. I'm here for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully this is also going to drive adoption from bigger names, maybe traditional Web2 institutions. We call them Web2, but more traditional big institutions maybe are going to get into the on-chain space as well because of those improvements. So that's the end goal. And with the tools that we have today, or that we're working on in the recent future, so for example, the universal accounts in next month or so, is there anything missing that would elevate the user experience to an extra level? Or is there anything missing from your stack that you're thinking, oh, I would really want to have this, but nobody's working on it?
It seems really odd to answer no to that question, but I don't think so. I actually don't think so. Just given the nature of what we're building and the tools that are available or like very close to being available, it feels like the infra is almost there. It's almost sorted. So really, I think it's now down to builders on the app layer. It's now the builders on the top to make it pretty and put the cherry on top and use these things the way they're meant to be used. And then we should see that big change.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's good because it means that everyone is working on what needs to be worked on.
Yeah.
You are actually building something in the space if you are staying well. For now, the tools that I have at my disposal are good. That's a good sign, definitely. Yeah.
Obviously, there's probably going to be room for stuff like performance improvements and all that, but I think everything is going the right direction. As far as the trading and an exchange goes, it looks good.
Nice. Giving a little bit more context about universal accounts and what we're doing at Particle Network, obviously, the universal accounts are all basically powered by account abstraction. Universal accounts are some kind of specialized smart account that enable all these features. For example, easier onboarding and customization, all these things. What do you think about account abstraction itself? Because there was, in the beginning, there has been a bit of almost controversy about account abstraction, right? It seems like it didn't get the adoption that it was supposed to, or it wasn't as hyped. What do you think about account abstraction itself? Is it worth using it besides enabling stuff like chain abstraction?
I think it's absolutely crazy that it hasn't really seen the pickup that it should have. And I suppose the reason for that is, again, that's the people that use on-chain tools are people they're either developers themselves or one step away from developers. They're definitely used to this kind of hardship. But in regard to mass adoption, seed phrases they're not suitable for mass adoption. It cannot happen. So I think the seed phrases is like an MS-DOS stage of home computing. And what we need is to move on to the pretty graphical user interface, the Windows of home. And account abstraction is the way to get there. I mean, I'm cute about myself. So I still use old wallets and stuff like that just because it's a habit thing. But definitely moving into the kind of next, exactly. But moving into the next phase, moving into the next growth phase where we really do want to see mass adoption, account abstraction has to be the standard. It just has to be, or it's not going to happen yet.
Yeah. It's allowing us to develop chain abstraction like we are now. Definitely, I was as well surprised a little bit when it was released. it was very hyped, and then it didn't quite get the adoption that it feel like it should have. And I agree, it's probably still a little cumbersome. And I do the same thing every day. I tell myself that I should stop using MetaMask, for example, and use something else, but I don't.
Yeah,
I'm just so used to it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Look at her own.
Yeah, it is. Yep, I'm getting old. Now, getting to the end here. What's the end game for Yamata? What is your end goal besides being able to retire?
I'll never retire. I'll never retire. It's a good question. Look, at the moment, we're very focused, very dedicated to getting the V1 launch the exchange out in Q1 of next year. That means like going to market with Monad as our primary exchange. Like then we'll reasonably quickly move multi-chain, and then straight away move to V2 or with full chain abstraction as we've been talking about. But I think long term, Yamata will have its own chain and its own ecosystem, which will all be centered around the same ethos of combining simplicity without sacrificing performance or security. That's the final destination, if you will.
Yeah, I feel like most or every on-chain application should have a similar goal, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
No, it's the way. It's the way.
Yeah, and 2025 is going to be the day. Now, we are recording this on the last day of 2024, so I think it's good riddance here, right?
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. For you, it's almost New Year.
Yeah. It's nearly 7 p.m. here in Dubai.
Nice still morning for me. Yeah, I think we can get to a closing here. Thank you very much, Brendan, for the time taken to explain what you're trying to do with Yamata, with your experience with chain abstraction. Hopefully in 2025, we can work closely with you and push this through.
Oh, 100%. Definitely. Look, and thanks for having me. It's been awesome.